Welcome to the Tea and Stories Mystic Vintage Fiction podcast. I am Amanda, and I'm here today with my sister Melissa.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about the first half of The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. We're going to be discussing the more mystic aspects of the book. By that, I mean the parts where the divine touches common everyday life and people are seeing beyond the veil. And this is a fairy tale of a book, so there's plenty of that. But we're going to start with tea time, as this is Tea and Stories. We have a blend that matches The Magician's Nephew. Then we're going to go through what happens in the first half of the book. And then we're going to use a method called Pardes. It's a Kabbalistic way of interpreting a text. To look at a passage in 4 different ways and try to pull some meaning from it. So thank you for joining us. First of all, though, I want to talk about how we came across this book and what Narnia means to each of us. So Melissa, how did you find Narnia?
So I started reading the Chronicles of Narnia books when I was a little girl. It was one of the first books that I read. And out of the 7 books, my favorite is this first one, The Magician's Nephew. So it kind of was like my gateway to start reading.
So funny because I feel like a lot of people don't enjoy The Magician's Nephew. You do.
I do. I really do enjoy it. I think there's a lot of adventure. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of magic, of course, because it's a magician. But it's just interesting to me. I don't know why this sticks out to me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And for me also, like I came across these books when I was a kid. I actually had a teacher who read us a chapter of Narnia a day for the school year. It was obviously my favorite part of the day. And even as an adult, I love coming back to these books. And I'm not really sure why. And then a few months ago, I stumbled on this article called Narnia Against the Machine, Deep Magic for the Modern Age by Natalie Burge. And she was explaining, how C.S. Lewis used fiction to kind of bring some vitality into everyday life. A quote from this article: "The living world was garlanded with poetry and myth, so that things not only had their material makeup, but were understood to call up proper emotional and moral responses." And to me, that just kind of what these stories do. They use poetry and myth to bring up emotional and moral responses for me. So I think they might do that for a lot of people. But we should probably get started with tea time. Today we have a tea blend that matches rather literally with The Magician's Nephew. It is a jasmine green tea. Melissa, will you explain how that matches our book?
Yes. So with the jasmine green tea, you have the jasmine, which is yellow, and the green tea, which is green. So those actually correspond well with the book because there are magical rings that are also yellow and green. And the purpose of the rings are to transport the children to Narnia. And that pairs well with the jasmine tea because in Eastern religions, they believe that it helped transport them spiritually.
Yeah. There are some religions that have ceremonies where they use jasmine to, transport the soul a little bit. So it is a delicious tea. It tastes grassy, honestly. Grassy and botanical, as green tea probably should, but it really matches kind of the woods vibe here, the woods between the world. So it works. It's from the Finer Tea Company in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So shout out to them. They're very friendly people. Good tea. And now, if you want something to sip while you read The Magician's Nephew, you have a great idea. And so now, let's get started talking about what happens through the first half of this book. What we did was wrote up each chapter in 5 sentences or less so that we can get through everything in a reasonable amount of time. And then we'll talk about important moments and things we want to call out. Melissa, you have chapter 1, right?
Yes. Chapter 1 is The Wrong Door. So the story starts off in London, where there's a little girl named Polly and a little boy named Diggory, who are neighbors for the summer. They bond over contemplating Diggory's Uncle Andrew's sanity, who Diggory's staying with. Since it was a rainy summer, they decide to explore the space between their houses. They miscalculated and ended up in Uncle Andrew's forbidden study. So Uncle Andrew found them and he manipulated Polly into wearing one of those magical rings we were just speaking of.
Yeah, and Uncle Andrew, what a character. He is super amusing. Like we see later, he puts on his fancy clothes and his top hat and he's like prancing around and he's all proud of himself. And he just has this huge ego. But so he's funny, but I feel like he's also kind of a sobering character because you have Jadis, who's like the very, the bad villain. But then you also have Andrew, who's like kind of an achievable villain. Like he's somebody that we could become. But in terms of mysticism that we're kind of talking about here, I feel like Andrew also wants to kind of transcend. He wants some sort of magic or spirit or divine in his life. And he wants to, have that kind of power really, but he's going about it very badly. Like he's tricking children and he's like blowing up guinea pigs. And I just feel like,
well, yeah, because Uncle Andrew, like at first, like the children are desperate to get out of the study, because they know they're not supposed to be there. But then he like talks nice to Polly and like, oh, well, at least take one of these rings. And it's just like he finds a way to get the children to do what he wants by just knowing the right buttons to push.
Right. And he's supposed to be like, he's not reaching for the beyond and the spiritual here in any kind of a noble way or in any kind of a wholesome way. He's super manipulative. And so then later he gets to Narnia and he gets what he wants, you think. And it's like a terrible experience for him. And I just wonder if Lewis is kind of giving us some kind of like warning or if he's making some kind of commentary there and he went about it the wrong way and, he was doing it for the wrong reasons. And so, is this a warning from Lewis or am I overthinking it?
No, that sounds about right because he's clearly showing us that, Uncle Andrew and also Jadis are prone to manipulating the children throughout the whole book at certain points. And then, like you said, when they're in Narnia, they have a horrible experience, whereas the children have a wonderful experience. So it's like you have to make sure that your heart is in the right place and that you're not trying to be evil.
I'm like not in it for your own glory, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. All right. So chapter two, Diggory and his uncle. Polly vanishes from the room and Diggory's horrified, but Uncle Andrew shuts him up by telling him making a scene will frighten his sick mother. Then Uncle Andrew explains he had a godmother, partially fairy, who bequeathed him a mysterious box. Over the years, he used dark magic to discover the box was from the lost island of Atlantis and had dust in it from another world, capital W world. He used the dust to create yellow rings that would transport the wearer to the other world and green rings to transport them back. And because he is a horrid, beastly, wicked, cruel magician, which we've already fairly well established, he manipulates Diggory into putting on a ring to go get Polly back. So yeah, everything we just said. What a trashy guy.
It's unfortunate. So then in chapter 3, we have the wood between the worlds. So Diggory puts on the ring to follow Polly and rescue her. The wood is a very calming place where nothing happens. Upon arriving to the wood, the children's memory gets fuzzy, and it takes them seeing Uncle Andrew's guinea pig to remember. They discover multiple pools of water that lead to other worlds. They check to make sure they can go back home. They mark their pool, and then they make the plunge into a different pool.
All right, let's talk about those woods for a moment. Millie, you love those woods, right?
I really do. It's very peaceful. There's like almost a whole page that just has a description of like describing what it looks like in the scenery. And it is just I would love to be there. I would love to just be able to take a minute. Like it sounds like the perfect vacation.
It does sound good, especially with the guinea pig there. But okay, wait, hold on, because there's something else about the woods that I wasn't thinking of until I reread this just recently. You're in there and it's beautiful and it's green and it's gloomy, and then you don't remember that you came from anywhere else. and the children just want to kind of go to sleep. And they keep getting drowsy and forgetting about their lives. So
yeah, so
there's
it is dangerous. There's a hidden danger with the wood between the worlds, because you can easily lose yourself and just stay there forever.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's another point where I'm wondering, like, am I overthinking it, or is Lewis trying to do something, or is it just like an aspect of a children's story where, like the poppies in Wizard of Oz, where poppy field you get sleepy, is it just part of the adventure?
I never made that parallel before. That is that's very true. It's very much like when they're in the poppy field and they all like start falling asleep and stuff. Because even when Diggory comes up through the pool, we know Polly's only been gone for a little while, and he finds her and she's like, her eyes are half open, like she's falling asleep.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And then she's like, he says, I've been here forever too. And
That part always makes me laugh.
And she's like, no, you just came out of the pool.
He's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but then also it has these pools. They're all alike, and you go in the wrong one, you never get home. So there's also the element of getting lost in that way. So
yes, and they almost forgot to mark their pool. When they realized that, they got very scared, because like they could have never made it back home if they didn't mark the pool before walking away from it, because there is no way to distinguish one pool from another.
Right. Do we pull a lesson from this? Don't get lost in our reflections and meditation time. We have dinner to cook.
Yes.
Got to go back to work.
You need to maintain balance. Relaxation is good, but you need to balance that out with responsibilities.
There we go. I don't know if he was trying to say that or not, but we're trying to say it. Mm-hmm. Gosh darn it. All right. Chapter 4, The Bell and the Hammer. So the children appear, because they're leaving the woods in a new pool now. They appear in a courtyard in an ancient abandoned world with a dying red sun. Polly wants to go home, but Diggory insists on exploring. They walk through a hall of hundreds of what seem to be wax statues, and they have hard and cruel faces, especially the biggest and most beautiful woman. They find a fancy little bell with a little hammer and a cryptic threat, and Polly wants to go home, but Diggory insists on exploring and ringing it. There's an enormous noise, and the roof falls in, so Polly gets to say, I told you so. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Charn.
I do not like Charn at all. I feel like it's a way of showing us like the bad side of humanity. Like if we aren't careful, then we can head in that direction. And I mean, I know we go up and down. We've had good times, we've had bad times, we've gone through bad wars. But Charn is literally like dying. So if we're not careful, we could push ourselves to that point as well.
Well, climate change, hashtag climate change.
Yeah.
No, but also like, how there's the deplorable word that's coming up that is a big part of what's wrong with Charn. And Lewis had just fought through the 2 world wars. And at this point, there's the atomic bomb, and there literally is a person in our world who has the power with multiple people in our world, who have the power with one word to decimate the planet. And so I wonder if that was, what he was, I don't know if it was like literal, like warning. No, I think maybe I'm pulling too many little moral lessons from this here, but at least that had to be, in the back of his mind when he wrote this.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So then we've got chapter 5, which is the deplorable word we were just speaking of. Diggory has just struck the magic bell with the hammer, and Empress Jadis wakes up. Upon meeting, Polly doesn't like her, but Diggory is taken with her due to her manipulation. She can turn people and obstacles to dust with her words. She demonstrates this by destroying the front doors of the palace. The children foolishly share information with her about their world, so she insists on being brought there, since her world is dying. The children touch their rings when the queen lets go of their hands, but she has a tight grip on Polly's hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yeah, just dark. And it's like, there's magic there too, but it is not divine.
No.
All right, so, sorry. Chapter 6, The Beginning of Uncle Andrew's Troubles. Diggory and Polly and Jadis land in the wood between the worlds, and Jadis immediately turns weak and sick. So that's a positive for the Woods. The children try to escape through the home pool, but Jadis latches on again, and they all land in Uncle Andrew's study. Jadis is not impressed with this weak little magician, but declares he can be her servant when she takes over the world. Diggory apologizes to Polly for being an ass, and she goes home to check in. Andrew goes to fetch Jadis a chariot, but on his way he grabs a stiff drink and some fancy clothes before he begs his sister for money for a cab. Yeah, just yucky. Jadis really does make like a perfect evil villain for this fairy tale adventure.
You know, as much as I don't like her because she is the villain of the story, I do like some aspects of her. Like, she's very confident in herself. She's very strong. She's just very strong-willed. And like, she doesn't, even though everyone gives her a hard time, you know, throughout the story, she doesn't back down. She doesn't doubt herself. She has that confidence.
It's funny because like that's what gets her in trouble in the end, which is the second half that we won't talk about here. That's what gets her in trouble in the end. And that's also what enables her to kind of bash these policemen over the head and steal the jewelry and the cab. Is she's just believes she's right.
It's probably because she has too much confidence.
Yeah.
So maybe if that was dialed back a little bit and she had some humanity, then she wouldn't be such a villain.
Yeah. 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 So it's hard, right? Because it's like, it's such a cliche to say too much of a good thing, you know, is bad. But really, any of these qualities that make her a villain are just exaggerated. What do you call them?
Attributes?
Yeah. But like positive ones. I don't know. It's true. It's like you do. I guess it's another like, oh, you need a balance, which I don't want to be boring about it. But she is just fascinating. She just gets carried away with herself, you know?
She does.
But she's also beautiful and tall and strong and right. So there is this yearning to kind of be her in a way.
Just a little bit, just a tiny bit of Jadis in me. That'd be nice.
All right. Your turn.
Okay. So then we have chapter 7, what happened at the front door. So while causing chaos in Uncle Andrew's home, the Queen discovers she lost her power to turn things and people to dust. She goes into London with Uncle Andrew. Meanwhile, Diggory worries and waits for them to return. Diggory hears his aunt mention fruit from the land of the youth, and he almost travels on his own to find it for his dying mother. But then Uncle Andrew and the Queen return, followed by police and an angry mob. The Queen has stolen pearls from a shop and stolen a hansom from a cabbie.
And what a day that housemaid was having.
Yes.
I love that. Lewis says that like 3 times. Oh, that's Sarah. She was having a day.
Mm-hmm. Poor Sarah.
But and poor Aunt Letty. Oh my goodness. She gets like thrown across the room and lands on a mattress.
But she's such a tough old bird because Jadis tries to turn her to dust. That's when she realizes she can't turn people to dust anymore. And she just thinks she's drunk. And she's like, get out of here, you silly little thing.
Oh my gosh, she does. You're right. And then she gets up off the mattress and she's like, what does she have? Her smelling salts or something. And then she's like, okay, Sarah, you go call the police and I'll go make lunch. Keep calm. Carry on.
Yeah.
It's great. Perfect character. All right, chapter 8. The angry mob is mocking Queen Jadis, and she starts bashing policemen over the head with the lamppost. Diggory and Polly have had enough, so they grab her and they slip on their yellow rings, and they land in the wood between the worlds with Jadis, and also Uncle Andrew, and the cabbie, and his horse, Strawberry, which, cute name for a horse. So for some reason, they jump right into another pool and land in the complete blackness of a brand new world. A voice starts singing, calling into being stars and then a sun, and then you can see that the voice belongs to a huge, shaggy, bright, operatic lion. Yeah, I don't know why they jump to the woods, and Jadis is like sailing there, and then they just jump right into another pool.
I think they were trying to just get away from her. Not sure if they were trying to take her to another world. Oh, I think they were trying to take her back to her world. And they didn't, yeah, then they jumped in the wrong pool. So,
okay.
They were trying to escape evil Jadis's clutches.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Because in the book, they're just like, quick, change. And then they jump. And I'm like, wait, where are you going? Like, leave her here. But no, that makes sense, by the way. And it comes along. And that's what happens in the first half of the book, which was lovely to review it with you because it's such a fun story. But now we're going to do our pardes, which is the interpretation of a part of this text. And if you've ever listened to Harry Potter and the Sacred Text podcast, you might be familiar with it. But we have chosen a passage from this book that is one of the mystical moments, one of the moments where the children are first experiencing like this change from everyday life to something just magical. And so, Melly, will you read the passage for us?
Yes. So they did not even need to put the rings on. The moment they touched them, the whole of that dreary world vanished from their eyes. They were rushing upward, and a warm green light was growing nearer overhead.
It's beautiful. All right. Step one of pardes is pashat, which means surface, where we're looking at the literal who is doing what in this passage. So, Melissa, again, would you mind explaining, like, what is the context? What are we seeing here?
So what's happening right now in the story is the children are on Charn with Jadis, and they're reaching for their rings, and this is when they realize that they don't even need to put them on for the magic to work. They just need to touch them. And they are going from Charn, going back to the wood between the worlds.
Right. That's right. Okay. And now we're going to do our second step. So it's called ramaz, which means hint. And we are looking for kind of like a symbolic or hidden meaning, going just a little deeper here. Will you read the passage again?
They did not even need to put the rings on. The moment they touched them, the whole of that dreary world vanished from their eyes. They were rushing upward, and a warm green light was growing nearer overhead.
I love that. Yeah, so here I felt like going like one level down in kind of meanings. I just felt kind of the urge to get away, right? This is about getting away from what's dreary and what's dark and what's evil, to state it plainly, but just the desire not to dwell in those places and not to have our minds be in those places and not to live physically in those places, obviously, but just to reach for something, warmer and greener and deeper and softer. And the idea that it's waiting for us, that there is something out there that we can get to. And that was my remez. I don't know. Do you feel that?
I do.
All right. So step 3 is darash, means interpretation. We're going to seek a little more wisdom by comparing the literal and symbolic meanings here with other references out there. So will you read it again for us, please?
They did not even need to put the rings on. The moment they touched them, the whole of that dreary world vanished from their eyes. They were rushing upward, and a warm green light was growing nearer overhead.
Thank you. All right. So this brings up 3 different things for me. First of all, the Bible. Do you remember that story in the Bible about the woman with like the wasting blood disease? And there's like a parade in the city because Jesus is in town and she is wanting to be healed. And so she crawls toward Jesus and she reaches out and she's only able to touch like the hem of his robe and she's healed.
Yeah, no, that was a very powerful story.
It's like, I believe the story. So Jesus says, who touched me? And people are saying, we're all jostling around you. Everyone's touching you. He said, no, somebody like really touched me. I felt power go out of me. And it was that powerful, like the woman's faith of just like reaching out. That was all that needed to happen. And she was healed. So that's the first thing that came to mind. And then opposite the Bible, we have, not opposite, but varying from the Bible, we have the Marvel Avengers universe, and there's a tesseract there. And it's like another shiny object that you touch and you transported through space and time, right? I think does Loki use it?
Yeah, so Loki uses it. He tries to steal it, I believe. But yeah, the Tesseract in the MC universe And that also Tesseract, that makes me think also of the Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah. It's another like jumping through and like to other worlds, really, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's like little bits in children's pop culture here and there that reflect this. And, you got to wonder, what were they inspired by? Because I looked it up, and a tesseract is like a geometrical concept of a four-dimensional square. And they're not talking about like fourth dimension as time. It's just like putting cubes in place of the sides of the square. So the tesseract, in terms of Marvel and also in terms of A Wrinkle in Time, as far as traveling through space and time, like that's new. I believe they read a little C.S. Lewis before they came up with those.
Well, let us not forget that there is also Doctor Who, the doctor who travels through space and time. I'm sorry, you said travels through space and time, and right away I'm thinking Doctor Who.
Of course. But he didn't touch a magical shiny object to get there, did he? Or does he?
Yeah, he has his spaceship time machine.
Oh, maybe they also were inspired.
Maybe.
Does he go to any woods?
They do go to Sherwood Forest in one of the episodes.
Forest, right? Maybe. Are there pools there? No. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's just this concept of the concept of instantaneous travel isn't that mystical in and of itself, but getting to someplace, moving from like the commonplace everyday or the dreary to someplace magical, like the wood between the worlds. And I will say, like Sherwood Forest, probably pretty powerful. And then the third thing that came up for me, because we're still on Drosh, is shamans using crystals in different ways, in different spiritual practices. But the rings here are made of like compressed yellow and green dust from another world. And so they basically are crystals. And so I went and I looked. I said, okay, well, what are green crystals used for? And what are yellow crystals tend to be used for? And so green crystals tend to be used for healing and renewal, and yellow crystals for moving you from like a negative or low state into a state of optimism and abundance. So I don't know if there's correlation there, but it kind of seems like it.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you heard of anybody using crystals like that?
Yes. Crystals, you can wear the crystals, or have them near you, and certain crystals have different properties that are good with certain things. Like one's good for clarification and one's good for calming, and some of them are used to bring positivity or to keep negativity away. But I have heard of that.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. I mean, I don't know if they do anything. I know like all the different natural substances have different vibrations, and different vibrations do affect, the human brain differently. All right. So we have our last step of Pardes now. It's called Sod, the secret or the mystery revealed to us by inspiration or revelation. So really this one, you sit with the passage and kind of go a little deeply to see how it speaks to you. Will you read it one more time?
Okay. So they did not even need to put the rings on. The moment they touched them, the whole of that dreary world vanished from their eyes. They were rushing upward, and a warm green light was growing nearer overhead.
Yeah, so this one, when I sat with this passage for a while, just two words were resonating with me, the plunging and the rushing. And the children, they quickly shove their hands in their pocket. They don't need to put the rings on. It's an act of desperation. And the second they touch the ring, they are immediately met with their relief. Here's the green light. You're away from Charn. That's all you needed to do. And it just was it just gave me the sense of relief. That when we're searching for something, outside, we reach for God, we say a prayer, we look up. And when we look up, we see what we need to see. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that, honestly. So that is a little hard, but it is, at least here, when we reach out, we're met with what we need, even if we can't see it at the time. And just the sense of the immediacy here, their desperation and the instant relief was really powerful, I think.
Yes, I tend to think of the verse, ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, it's supposed to be that simple. It doesn't feel like that sometimes, right?
No.
And that's, I think, one of the mysteries, mysteries of life. But honestly, like more often than not, I'll be struggling with something or trying to find an answer and trying to find an answer. And like our grandmother, I would call our grandmother and be like, I don't know what to do and this and that. And I don't know. And she'd say, well, did you pray about it? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Gotta
Good
love
point.
grandma.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I did. And then you know what? Like, I'm not going to say I heard a voice. Um, but there was either like a leading, usually some kind of feeling of a leading or a reassurance that, yeah, okay. So now it's out of my hands and I'm just going to do, the next right thing and it will work out. Or just kind of a relief that like, that's not mine to worry about. So there's always something, like, okay, I've passed it off into other hands.
Yeah, I get that. I've experienced that myself where I've been in a sticky situation and I do everything I can, and then someone else takes over. And I'm like, okay, well, it's off my head then.
Right? That's the feeling. So there you go. That's what Polly and Diggory got. Like, okay, here, please, rings. And the rings were like, yes, we have you. Keep your arms and legs inside. We are traveling to the woods. Yeah. All right. That was our parties. So the next part of our episode is a challenge. I'm calling it a wild application for our world because it's something for us to do. I'm challenging myself to do it. I'm challenging you if you're listening. I'm challenging Melissa. Uh, to take a step inspired by this book to bringing God, the divine mysticism closer to our lives. And so in this case, for the first half of The Magician's Nephew, I went really literal. So Mel, you know how the children are plunging in and out of pools of water?
Yes.
So I decided that I am going to plunge in a cold plunge, and remain in it for 3 minutes. Apparently it is a thing. And people do it for physical reasons. They do it for like recovery from running a marathon or hard training, and they do it for mental clarity. But also people do this for like as a spiritual discipline. I don't think it's that common, but I was listening to the Spiritual Wanderlust podcast and there was a discussion. There's an episode called Spiritual Skinny Dipping. And it's about like how, monks will go into the wild and they will remove their clothes so they can be as close to God's creation as possible and remove the trappings of human life. And they will dive into the locks. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do this. And I have already tried twice. I believe I reported to you about my attempts.
Yes.
And I couldn't find anywhere natural to go around me. So I tried in my bathtub, but the water wouldn't get cold. So then I was traveling and I found, an ocean inlet with a dock. And I said, I'm going to do this at 6 a.m. So I got up and I prayed for like half an hour and then I dove in and the water was not cold. And so I swear, as I'm landing in the warm water there, I felt Jesus saying to me, I'm in the warm water too. Like, you don't have to be so dramatic about it. And I thought, oh man, this is not great for my podcast. Right? Cause like,
well, no, it's a good thing to do because then you tried the challenge. You did the challenge. Congratulations. I don't think I'm going to, but I guess it's just, you don't always have to, it doesn't always have to be so hard. Like, yeah, sometimes things are really difficult and really tedious and hard to get through, but sometimes they're not. And, he's there in the cold and the warm water.
But also, you know what? And that's literally the point here, right? Is like, that's the point of our passage. You just say hello and you hear back, yes, I'm here.
Right. Like it's not supposed to be hard.
Right. Right. But at the same time, honestly, I'm still issuing the challenge and I'm still going to do it because I want to experience this as spiritual discipline and see if it changes me in a way that makes me more attuned to God and to the spiritual side of things. And I know I don't need to do this to get in contact with him. But I think that there is something to spiritual discipline, and I just want to see what happens. And I am issuing the challenge to listeners. If anybody does this or has done this, please let me know how it goes. I'm very interested to see your stories. And Melissa, you're saying this challenge is not for you.
This challenge is not for me. I may take the challenge in a less literal way, but I do not enjoy the cold. I do not enjoy wintertime. I do not go in the pool if it is below 80 degrees. So this is not for me.
Gotcha. And what do you mean by a less literal way?
So I am going to do some studying into just some spiritual beliefs and try to, I don't know, just kind of establish my own roots and learn how to handle my emotions better and meditate and just kind of try to grow, kind of plunge into the spiritual waters, as it were.
You're doing a research plunge.
Yes.
All right. So if anybody wants to do a research plunge instead of a cold plunge, also let us know how it goes. All right. And in a minute, we're going to do Florilegia, which will be our last step, which is Florilegia is a Latin tradition of gathering sentences into kind of word bouquets, collecting beautiful sentences from a work. And actually botanists do this as well. They create like a book about beautiful flowers in famous gardens, but we're going to gather some sentences for you to carry with you through your day. But before we share them, I just want to thank you guys for listening. And I want to thank you, Melissa, for being here and sharing your thoughts.
Absolutely.
And you'll be back, right? Next episode?
Definitely. I'm already ready.
Awesome. All right. So also, just to let everyone know, you can find some Narnia merch at tnstoriespod.com, my site. And you can always reach me at team@tnstoriespod.com. I'll put it in the show notes along with my Instagram handle. And I would love to know your thoughts on The Magician's Nephew and cold plunging and green and yellow rings and any and all of the above. So thank you so much for listening. And here is your Florilegia. Melody, you want to start?
The trees grew close together and were so leafy that he could get no glimpse of the sky.
Hold your noise, everyone, said the cabbie. I want to listen to the music, for the song had now changed.
She had often drunk a quiet bottle of ginger beer in there. The old bottles made it look more like a smuggler's cave.
When he burst into a rapid series of lighter notes, she was not surprised to see primroses appearing in every direction.
Ours is a high and lonely destiny.
And if we're dead, which I don't deny it might be, well, you gotta remember that worse things happen at sea, and a chap's gotta die sometime, and there ain't nothing to be afraid of if a chap's led a decent life. And if you ask me, I think the best thing we could do to pass the time would be to sing a hymn.